They did not speak. None of them ever did once the iron gates sealed behind them. Even the servitors slaved to the cogitator-banked walls hummed in silence, vox cores deactivated by design. In the darkness of the chamber of fate, the only light came from the bones. 12 skulls, suspended in adamantine gallows, ringed the obsidian floor, each one polished to a mirror sheen, each set within a bracket of star-wrought metal. Beneath them, the prognostic rites began. A single figure stood at the center. No name, no rank, only a title, Prognosticator Majoris. His robes were lined with hex copper threads, every seam encoded with sigils drawn from Varsavian pre-imperial geomancy, before the world was even known to the stars. Around his exposed scalp, thin scars traced the paths of ancient ritual surgeries. Beneath his eyelids, light leaked out in threads. His breath was measured, not in rhythm, but in convergence. A cycle aligned with celestial coordinates visible only from Varsavia's southern pole during the convergence of moons 3 and 5. He did not blink. That would break the circle. Then the bone orbs began to turn. One by one, each skull rotated on its tether, not by mechanism, but by the psychic currents thickening in the sealed air. Thin runes etched into the silver plating ignited. 12 languages, 12 dialects, 12 deaths. Each skull once belonged to a former prognosticator. None had died quietly. All had been anointed in battle beneath the sanction of the tarot. And now, they judged. The center platform shifted. Beneath the Prognosticator Majoris, a disc of metal recessed. Steam hissed. A stasis vault cracked open, revealing a sheaf of blackened cards. The tarot itself, chained to the altar by 2 ritual adamantium links, one shattered from a past heresy never recorded. He did not reach for it. The deck rose by servo mechanism, hovering into his waiting hands. He did not shuffle. That too had been forbidden in the Varsavian Scholia. Instead, he breathed again, this time exhaling into the deck. The cards shimmered, not with light, but with refusal. 2 did not rise. On did. 9 faced him. 1 turned away. He began to speak, but not to the living. By the will of him who cannot be questioned, by the silence of those who died in certainty, I bear this pattern to the vault. And then the doors opened. Not by hand, not by servo. They opened because the skulls had stopped moving. Each warrior who had stood beyond the threshold, silver-plated helms lowered in deference, swords sealed within their ceramite bindings, now stepped forward. None spoke. All knew what had been decided. There would be war. But only because war had been permitted, not strategized, not declared, permitted. For in the chapter of the Silver Skulls, no battle begins with orders, no purge proceeds from ambition, and no victory is ever claimed unless the dead have already seen it. This is how the Varsavian orthodoxy commands its sons, by silence, by vision, by death that decides before life can act. Varsavia does not welcome life. It tests it. The atmosphere is thin. The tectonic seams shift with ceaseless violence, and the light of its dying sun cuts through the clouds in jagged scars. It is a world of barren ridges, metallic sandstorms, and valleys carved by orbital debris. The tribes call these craters God's teeth. They sleep beneath them as a rite. If the sky swallows you in the night, it means you are unworthy. It is from these tribes that the Silver Skulls recruit. They do not arrive in thunderhawks. That would be spectacle. They arrive in silence, on foot, on ridgeline, always at night. No lights, no warnings. Only the scraping of ceramite against stone. The tribes know what it means. Sons will be taken. Fathers will be silenced. And the chosen will not return. That is the cost. The aspirant trials begin before the chapter ever touches them. The boys must find the Vault of Iron Teeth, an ancient Varsavian ruin buried beneath 3 sand-choked chasms and watched by servo-predators left behind by the first founding. Inside, the candidates fight until only one exits. The tribe buries the others. That too is the cost. The survivor bears no name afterward. He becomes a vessel. Not for war, not yet, but for belief. Varsavian belief is not structured. It is not a system. It is a trauma in ritual form. The tribes believe every soul is born stained with potential failure, and the only way to cleanse it is through sacrifice, of self, of kin, of future. The Silver Skulls did not erase this when they took Varsavia. They integrated it. The neophytes are not taught history. They are shown the skulls. Chambers beneath the fortress monastery, hewn into the crust of Varsavia itself, house thousands of silver-plated crania. Not trophies, not relics, lessons. Each skull corresponds to a decision made, a life given, or a battle that should never have occurred but did. The bone is inscribed with Varsavian glyphs, jagged, spiraling, painful to read. The neophytes are told, "You will earn your skull, but not in life." By the end of their third cycle in the Scholia Mortis, most can recite not dates, but deaths. This is not Codex doctrine, Guilliman never taught by grave, but the Silver Skulls do, because Varsavia does not permit abstraction. To survive is to remember the pain of those who didn't. This memory becomes their faith. And faith, on Varsavia, is not a comfort. It is a blade. Not all wars are fought, not even by the Space Marines. For the Silver Skulls, battle is not a matter of readiness or wrath. It is a privilege that must be earned, not through rank, not through zeal, but through permission. That permission does not come from any Lord Commander, from any segmentum order, or even from Guilliman himself. It comes from the Emperor's Tarot. The deck is sacred, not symbolic, literal. Forged from psi-reactive material found only in the fault hollows of pre-compliance Mars. Each card etched by the Ordo Chronos during the Old Night. Touched by an Emperor, no one sees but all obey. The Silver Skulls keep theirs chained inside the Vault of Silence beneath the Fortress Monastery on Varsavia. It is not accessed lightly. Each use is a ritual. Each draw, a decision made in terror. Aboard strike cruisers, battle barges, even rhino transports, the prognosticators bring the deck into the war chamber. Officers wait. Orders are paused. The fate of the campaign is decided by the arc of the draw. The card is lifted. If the pattern reveals favor, warrior, emperor, lightning tower, or forge, the path is sanctioned. Astartes will deploy. Lives will be extinguished. Oaths will be made that no man can break. But if the spread returns the void, the black sun, the word, or the tomb, the war ends, even if the enemy is within reach, even if Imperial Guard regiments are already bleeding for ground, even if the honor of the chapter is spat upon. They will not act, because the Emperor has not permitted it. This has brought the chapter into conflict not with Xenos, but with mankind. High Lords have called them cowards. Segmentum commanders have labelled them unreliable. Even other chapters, especially the Scythes and Howling Griffins, have clashed with their refusals to engage. Once, in the outer systems of Vortem's Reach, an entire campaign was lost because the Silver Skulls refused to intervene after the weird card was drawn 3 times. 38 worlds burned. But that is the price of orthodoxy. To act without the Emperor's sanction is heresy. To seek battle for glory is sin. The Silver Skulls believe that victory without divine pattern is worse than defeat, because it corrupts the soul, because it fractures the wheel of fate, because it dares to write a future the Emperor himself did not design. This is not superstition, not to them. It is law, cosmic, immutable. The Codex Astartes defines structure, the Tarot defines action, and when both align, when the augurs blaze and the cards flare white with sanctioned light, the Silver Skulls descend like myth incarnate. Silent, unstoppable, sanctified. The Chamber of Fate is not singular. It is the echo of a deeper construct buried beneath Varsavia's crust, beneath even the Scholia Mortis and the ossuary crypts. There, shielded by adamantium vaulting and nullgrav monoliths, stands the Prognosticatum. It is a circular sanctum. 13 thrones, each formed from alloyed star metal and Varsavian obsidian, form the perimeter. 11 are always occupied. 1 is rarely filled. 1 remains forever vacant. The 11 seated are the senior prognosticators, drawn from across the chapter's strike forces and home command. Each is a librarian, but not as the codex defines. Their training begins with psychic induction but ends with belief. Belief not in power, but in pattern. They are not weapons. They are interpretations. They do not cast spells. They read fractures in time. The 12th throne belongs to the prognosticator Majoris. He speaks rarely, writes less. When he does, the chapter alters course, without vote, without delay. He does not answer to the chapter master. The chain of command recognizes a higher order, one sanctioned by the Emperor's own mysteries. And then, there is the 13th throne. It has never been filled. Its surface is unmarked. It bears no sigils, no identifiers. Unlike the others, it is not psychically shielded. It does not radiate. It absorbs. Those who sit in it, accidentally or with intent, are found days later, empty-eyed, with fractured minds repeating numbers that do not resolve. It is called the blind eye. No records exist for its origin. The oldest vault scrolls merely name it the throne of that which waits. Some whisper it is reserved for the Emperor himself, should he ever walk again. Others believe it is the throne of refusal, where false futures go to die. The librarians do not speculate, they observe, for within the prognosticatum speculation is sin. The thrones operate together. Once a campaign draws near and a tarot reading indicates conditional engagement, the 11 speak in turn, not aloud, not through vox, but in psychic pulses laced with Varsavian pattern runes, an ancestral code woven into their DNA since implantation. Each throne contributes a line of fate. The 12th aligns them. The 13th observes. If the pulses converge into harmony, the assault begins. If they diverge, the assault is delayed. If the 13th throne flickers, battle is forbidden. There is no override. No one disputes the will of the blind eye, because those who have tried no longer speak. The Silver Skulls do not worship their librarians. They obey them, for theirs is not psychic power, it is revelation. And revelation, among Varsavia's sons, is never questioned, only feared. They do not kill for vengeance, not for conquest, not even for duty. The Silver Skulls kill to harvest meaning. During battle, when the thunder of bolters chokes the wind and the vox channels stammer with the final pleas of mortals, the Astartes of Varsavia move with deliberate intent. They do not leave the bodies untouched, not if the dead mattered. The rite begins before the war ends. If the adversary has proven formidable, be it Xenos Overlord, Warpsworn Champion, or mortal general whose defiance burned bright enough to draw augural notice, his head is taken. Not for spectacle, not for tally, but for ascension. The act is precise, the neck severed in a single stroke, the skull removed before rigor can desecrate posture. Ceramite gloves never touch flesh. Instead, the skull is wrapped in votive cloth inked with Varsavian spiral script, each line transcribed from older victories. Then it is suspended from the warrior's belt, carried into the rest of battle like a censured relic. The flensing begins only after silence. Once the enemy is routed, and the omens complete their pattern, the bones are brought to the requiritus, a sub-chapel beneath every silver skull's strike vessel, sealed in ice-laced adamantium and lined with silvered basins. There, the chaplain and a prognosticator attend the ritual in tandem. The process is slow. Flesh is scraped by obsidian edge, never steel. The brain matter is preserved in containment flasks, archived for later dream sifting. The skull, stripped bare, is lowered into a basin of boiling silver. The silver used is not native. It is mined from moons long excommunicated, once declared forbidden by ancient ecclesiarchy decrees. Its origin is not discussed, only its purity matters. Once sealed, the skull is engraved with the final words the enemy spoke before death. Then it is stored. Thousands of such skulls rest in the vault crypts aboard Stern Judicator, Vorax Ultima, Thrice Shielded, and the battle barge Invigilatum. Each is categorized, indexed, revered, not because of who they were, but because of what they taught. To the Silver Skulls, death is not an ending, it is a declaration. Each skull is a sigil, proof that prophecy has teeth, that the tarot did not lie, that fate followed the pattern etched in the cards. Even Guilliman's post-return edicts, decrying ritual excess, emphasizing discipline and purge over pattern, have not altered this. Because Guilliman fights with logic, the Silver Skulls fight with belief, and belief demands tokens. The skulls whisper to those who listen, not with voices, but with presence. You do not need to hear them. You only need to enter the vault once. You will not forget the sound. On the surface, they obey. The Codex Astartes is honoured, referenced, upheld in every visible discipline. Squad formations mirror the 5th edition war charts. Armour inscriptions follow sanctioned sigil layouts. Logistics proceed according to ultramarine pattern. From the void, from orbit, from the reports of inquisitors unfamiliar with Varsavia's soil, the Silver Skulls appear loyal, rigid, pure. But beneath the plate, they remember other laws. Each neophyte receives the gene seed of Guilliman, monitored, tracked, clean. But once implanted, it does not remain untouched. It does not grow in isolation. Varsavia interferes. There are no records to prove mutation. The apothecarian maintains rigorous standards. The chapter's tithe remains unchallenged. Yet every initiate dreams the same dreams. Metal storms that scream with tribal chants. Bones that do not die. Blood that coils up instead of falling. These are not hallucinations. They are memories. The source is not the gene seed. It is the rite. Before implantation, every Varsavian aspirant is bled dry in the bone trench beneath the scolia mortis. There, half buried in the mud and silver sediment, their ancestors sleep. The skulls press against the surface, blind sockets turned upward. The aspirant lies between them for a night and a day. No food, no light, no noise but the wind. When the implantation begins, the pain is worse than normal. Even the apothecaries note it. Some die screaming, the rest are changed. Not biologically. No aberrations exist in standard evaluation, but in instinct, in reaction, in the things they feel before they happen. Varsavian recruits move faster before sensors detect threat. They sense deception before enemies speak. They track trajectories not by logic, but by prescience born of trauma, carved deep into tribal bloodlines. It is not psyker ability, it is something older. The Codex Astartes has no room for tribal memory, but the Silver Skulls do. Their chaplains do not preach with scripture alone. They invoke ancestral chants drawn from clan wars before Imperial contact. They burn bone fragments in rites unrecorded. They speak of loyalty, not to the Emperor alone, but to the dead, to those who walked Varsavia's storms when the stars were still silent. This syncretism is not declared, it is embedded. Their battle doctrine reflects it. Assault squads break rank to follow augural instinct. Librarians choose battle zones based on dream signs. Company captains allow duels before planetary invasions, not for dominance, but to let fate bleed clean. This is not the way of Macragga, but it is the way of Varsavia. And in the crucible of survival, the Codex does not command. It observes, and records what it cannot explain. The Emperor's tarot does not lie. That is what they believe. But it does not always tell what you want to know. Sometimes, the Prognosticators read death, not in metaphor, in detail. They see the detonation before the generator fails. They hear the vox scream of a dying sergeant before his mission begins. They feel the weight of the casket before the battle is joined. And still, they fight. Because to ignore the omen is heresy. To heed it and retreat is dishonor. There are moments in the chapter's archives marked only by black seals. Entire wars engaged under full augural knowledge of defeat. Worlds where the tarot spread offered not even a flicker of victory. Yet the Silver Skulls deployed, weapons locked, eyes already set to close. They call it the Writ of Ash. It is not given lightly. A captain must receive 3 converging signals, the eye closed in the deck, the 13th throne's flicker, and a dream of salt. The salt dream is always the same, an ocean with no moon, bones washing ashore, a voice counting backwards from 13. Once all 3 signs occur, the war is marked. The warriors volunteer, not blindly, not in defiance, but in ritual. They are told what will happen, how it will end, who will die, sometimes even when. They etch the foreseen moment into their armor. They record farewells to no one. They seal their own names in the vault, where even the chaplains will not retrieve them. And then they march. This is not courage. This is not madness. This is what belief demands. They have lost companies to such wars. The Battle of Lysic's Gate, the Hollow Siege, the collapse of the Fourth Banner at Nelor's Reach, each predicted, each embraced. Each now remembered only by silver skulls, sealed in vaults with no accompanying record. For some memories are not lessons. They are burdens, to be carried, not studied. There are no commendations for Writ of Ash campaigns, only silence. Because foresight for the silver skulls is a gift, but gifts must be paid for. And the cost is knowing you will die before you begin. Varsavia lies on the edge of a wound. To the cartographers of the Segmentum Obscurus, it is marked as a border world, close to the Gildar Rift, farther still from the Emperor's wrath. But the maps lie. They always have. What surrounds Varsavia cannot be contained in Imperial ink. The Gildar Rift is not a void lane, it is a scar in reality. Old star charts show missing sectors where light curves back upon itself. Vox signals loop, time fractures. Explorator vessels vanish and reappear with different crews, different names, different cargo they never loaded. None of this is written in the sanctioned logs, but the Silver Skulls know, because they live near it. The rift shapes them. Navigators call it cursed. Astropaths whisper that the light beyond it isn't warp light. It's something else. Not absence, but rejection. A part of the galaxy that does not acknowledge human truth. The Mechanicus has failed to stabilize even a single stable jump path through its heart. Ships must slingshot through half-mapped stormfronts. Some come out wrong, bent. Others never exit at all. Yet the Silver Skulls patrol it. Not to control, not to claim, but to learn. The Prognosticators keep vaults of star echoes gathered from within the rift's periphery, spectral recordings, fate frequencies, signal reversed omens. They listen to things no human should hear. And then they build deployment charts from them. Because the Gildar Rift does not just consume, it announces. Before Xenos raids strike Varsavian reach space, the omens shift. Before Necron tomb fleets rise from sub-reality, the rift flares in patterns that mirror Varsavian bone runes. Before the Drukhari launch their shadow assaults, the rift speaks in light distortions that ripple like a broken tarot deck. The Silver Skulls do not wait to be attacked. They interpret and intercept, but the price of proximity is erosion, of minds, of meaning, of time. Entire patrols return hollow. Not dead, changed. Crews that left with names come back with numbers. Battle brothers who speak fluent Gothic return, murmuring dialects that match nothing in the Imperial record. Astartes who have fought for decades request reinitiation, claiming they were never inducted. Prognosticators burn the logs. They declare the memories contaminated. No one is punished. No one is blamed. It is the rift. It reaches into the soul and leaves something behind. Something that stares back. Their chambers are below the Librarius, not by accident, by design. The Prognosticators do not live among the line officers, nor within the standard librarian vaults assigned by Codex Doctrine. Their quarters descend, 7 levels down, through lead-lined corridors and memory-sealed doors. The air is thinner there. The light curves slightly, even when the lumen strips remain steady. It is not a place for rest, because prognosticators do not sleep. They enter trance states instead. Psychic suspension in containment sarcophagi, suspended in amniotic gel laced with nootropic distillate and neural resistors. The gel is seeded with memory imprints drawn from former seers, a feedback cycle of ancestral thought. This is not a restorative ritual, it is exposure. Every sleep is a convergence with past visions. Each prognosticator must relive the deaths of his predecessors. This is not ceremonial, it is mandatory. They are expected to inherit unresolved portents and carry them forward through interpretation. No dream is discarded, no false omen is ignored. If one librarian dies without decoding a specific pattern, it passes into the gel, and so the next one carries it. Some visions span centuries. Some are older than the chapter's official founding. They call them orphaned truths, and they cannot be destroyed. Even Guilliman's return did not change the practice. When the Indomitus Crusade brought new edicts, new reforms, new Librarius standards, the Silver Skulls acknowledged them, then sealed the jail chambers tighter. Because memory is their weapon, and weapons are never surrendered. Sometimes, the trance fractures. A prognosticator will emerge mid-cycle, eyes bleeding light, mouth chanting coordinates to battles that never occurred. These are not dismissed. They are recorded, marked, filed under the Arc Numinae, the secret ledger of possible wars. Even the chapter master is denied access. There is a hierarchy of silence, above the captains, above the chaplains, above death. A structure built on the understanding that thought itself, when shaped correctly, can pierce causality. Not all omens lead to battle. Some are maps, others are warnings. But the most dangerous are questions. Those are stored in Vault 9. No one speaks of Vault 9, not because it is forbidden, but because the last prognosticator who tried to interpret its contents aged 20 years in an hour and dissolved into silver ash. They once fought without knowing who they were. For most of their history, the Silver Skulls believed themselves to be sons of Guilliman, not by certainty, but by aspiration. Their heraldry echoed Ultramar blue, their structure mirrored the Codex, their rites, however shrouded in Varsavian myth, still bore the trappings of discipline. Yet no proof survived. The records were dust. The data, lost in warp fires and administrative attrition. For 10,000 years they stood in the Emperor's light unnamed. That changed after the 13th Black Crusade. When Guilliman walked again, when the Imperium Nihilus cracked open like bone under pressure, the Silver Skulls answered the call, not with immediate deployments, but with augural sanction. Their prognosticators cast the Emperor's tarot for 12 consecutive days aboard the Invigilatum. Every draw returned the warrior card, inverted and glowing. The meaning was clear. He had returned. They would be seen. When the Primarch stood before the chapter, he did not speak at first. He did not greet them as sons. He studied them, their discipline, their silence, their skull vaults, their bone script, their refusal to act without divine pattern. And then he gave his answer. They were his, not by proximity, not by emulation, by blood. The gene seed test confirmed what belief had already constructed. They were ultramarines. Second founding, fractured by time and mistranslation, but true. Guilliman's gene line ran in their veins. They were acknowledged, legitimized, named, but it did not bring joy. There was no ceremony. Because for the Silver Skulls, identity is not inherited, it is earned. They did not change, they did not paint new banners or adopt Ultramar's laurels. They retained their rights, their skulls, their silence. Guilliman's recognition was accepted, but not enshrined, because the tarot had already shown it, because the omens had already whispered it, because Varsavia had never doubted. Afterward, when Primaris reinforcements were offered, drawn from Guilliman's own tithes, the chapter paused. For 8 days, the prognosticators debated. It was not distrust, it was calibration. Primaris did not dream in Varsavian dialect. They did not see the same signs. Their blood was pure, but their instincts were distant. They were inducted, but not unaltered. Each was subjected to the trench rite. Each lay beneath the bone. Only those who dreamed true were accepted. The rest were transferred. Guilliman did not object. He understood. Because purity is not legacy, it is alignment. And among the Silver Skulls, only those who walk beneath the veil of unknowing can be trusted to act with absolute conviction. There is one figure who does not command, does not fight, does not speak. It is not a librarian. It is not a chaplain. It is not listed among the ranks. But it watches. The warriors of the Silver Skulls know its presence not by sight, but by absence, of sound, of static, of tension. In the moments before battle, when the prognosticators have given sanction and the tarot confirms trajectory, a stillness sometimes spreads across the vox. Not a malfunction, not interference. Silence that hums. They call it the warden. It is not flesh. It is not confirmed. But every battle brother has seen a shape that no Auspex detects, a silhouette in the corner of eye and breath, armored like a veteran, but marked by no heraldry. It walks the deck plates before void drops. It stands near fallen brothers moments before death. It enters sealed rooms no servitor can open. The chapter denies its existence. And yet its presence alters ritual. When the warden is sighted, no skulls are taken, no flesh is flensed. The requiritus remains cold. Instead, the fallen are sealed whole, their names recorded not in script but in vibration. Audio loops played backwards, stored in echo vaults beneath the forge sanctum. Chaplains offer no explanation. Prognosticators refuse questions. The thrones fall still. It is the death that watches. Its appearance coincides with anomalies in the deck, patterns that do not conform to the 78 sanctioned archetypes, cards that flicker between symbols never officially printed. Once, a prognosticator drew a card marked only with a mirrored skull. It bled. That campaign was abandoned. No orders given, just departure. The warden had been seen 3 times in the hours prior. There are no doctrinal sources for this figure. No edict names it. No liturgy invokes it. Yet the silver skulls operate around it. Like a hidden axis, a sacred negative. Some believe it is a fragment of Gilliman's own vision, cast off during stasis, wandering the Imperium in psychic reflection. Others say it is a rejected 13th throne incarnate. A psychic shadow left by the first tarot draw that ever failed. One chaplain called it the answer unwanted. He was never seen again. Among Varsavia's sons, it is not discussed, only endured, for not every part of the Emperor's will is meant to be read. Some parts are meant to be feared. Their victories are not always welcomed. Imperial commanders request the silver skulls with caution, not because of failure, no such stain mars their banners, but because of the uncertainty they bring. Their ships arrive without Vox announcement. Their warriors do not confer with Astra Militarum generals. Their first act on arrival is not strategy. It is drawing the Emperor's tarot. If the cards favor action, the skulls engage. If they do not, they wait, or leave. No amount of pleading, of political pressure, of High Lord signed mandate changes this. Prognosticator sanction is absolute. In the war for Kessan's Hollow, the Guard lost 50,000 men awaiting the silver skull's drop. The tarot had revealed a hinge pattern, a future that would only yield if patience was applied. The chapter did not move until the 14th day, when the right card fell. By then, the civilian population was ash and the enemy entrenched. But when the skulls struck, they did so with unerring precision, landing on the exact hour that the planetary alignment fractured the enemy's psionic barrier. The war ended in 1 hour. The Guard's commanders were dead, but the tarot was satisfied. Other chapters call it arrogance. The skulls do not respond. They do not judge based on cause. Only one consequence. Moral complexity is not their language. In Varsavia's script, there is no word for mercy and no concept for dilemma. Their doctrine is not weighted by temporal politics. It is not concerned with guilt or righteousness, only with alignment. Does the enemy exist in violation of fate? Then it is to be purged. Does the ally act against a sign? Then they are to be corrected or abandoned. Even the Inquisition finds them difficult to control. Attempts to insert observers into their ships end with memory loss. Interrogators assigned to ride with the Librarius emerge mute. Sanctioned psychers report temporal bleed. One record notes a Lord Inquisitor requesting psychic access to a prognosticator's vision stream. The request was granted. The Inquisitor no longer dreams. And the skulls do not ask why. They do not debate their role. They act, then vanish. Only the silver skulls remain, buried in the crypts of the battlefields they refuse to name. And the tarot continues to fall. There is a card the deck is not supposed to contain. It is not part of the sanctioned 78. It has no place in the imperial schema. The Emperor's tarot, as printed by ecclesiarchal edict, ends with the thrones. But among the silver skulls, there are whispers of another draw. It is not named, it is not illustrated, but it appears. Once every century, sometimes twice. It cannot be pulled deliberately. It falls on its own, between spreads, between intentions, a flicker, a fracture, a card shaped like absence, blank at first glance. But once drawn, its meaning is immediate. It means the end, not just of battle, not just of lives, but of sequence. The Prognosticators call it only the 13th. It has no house, no alignment. It bears no number, no rune, no sigil. But those who see it describe a sound, like bone breaking inside glass, or a child breathing through ash. It does not predict failure. It does not offer paths. It cancels all interpretation. Once drawn, no further cards may follow. The tarot ceases to function, the omens die, and the chapter acts not with certainty, but with memory alone. When the 13th falls, all ships lock Vox, all librarians enter trance, all chaplains don armor older than their own names, and the entire chapter prepares for war, not to win, not to survive, but to answer. What they are answering is never explained. But the skulls taken in such wars are different. They do not speak. They do not silver clean. And they are not stored. They are burned. In the dark. Without chant. The 13th is never reported to Terra. Never mentioned in Librarium entries. Never preserved in data looms. Only Varsavia remembers. And it remembers in silence. Beneath its frozen soil lie altars shaped like the card. 12 steps to descend. A 13th that leads nowhere. Once a brother tried to speak of it aloud. He had seen it drawn twice in 1 decade. He removed his helmet, said only, "It did not fall," and died before he could explain what he meant. The deck was burned that day. No replacement was sanctioned. Because sometimes the Emperor speaks not to guide, but to close the door.